I never imagined that a friendship of over 3 decades could be dismantled by a single act of betrayal. Yet, here I am, Auntie Maya, standing in the ruins of what I once called my most cherished relationship. But before we dive deeper into this story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing how far our stories travel. Back in the vibrant streets of Atlanta, Georgia, I met Lorraine. We were both wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, fresh out of high school, embarking on the roller coaster of adulthood. Our friendship was instant, a spark ignited by shared dreams and mutual respect. Over the years, we became inseparable, our lives interwoven like the intricate patterns of a well-loved quilt. Lorraine was there for me through thick and thin, my rock, my confidant, my sister from another mister. But life, as it often does, decided to throw us a curveball. Lorraine got involved in some financial troubles. She was desperate, cornered by debts she couldn't pay off. I, without a second thought, offered to help. After all, what are friends for if not to support each other in times of need? I loaned her a significant amount of money, enough to clear her debts and give her a fresh start. She promised to pay me back, even if it took a lifetime. Years went by, and Lorraine's financial situation improved. Yet, there was no mention of the debt. I didn't press her, trusting in the bond we shared. But the silence on the matter began to sow seeds of doubt in my heart. Then, one day, the truth came crashing down on me like a ton of bricks. It was a sunny Tuesday afternoon when I discovered that Lorraine had come into a large sum of money, enough to live a life of luxury and ease. She had won the lottery, millions at her disposal. Yet she chose not to tell me, not even a hint. I found out through a mutual friend who assumed I knew. The pain of betrayal was sharp, a knife twisted in my heart. How could she? Why would she hide such a thing from me, especially when she knew how much I had sacrificed to help her? I confronted her, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. Lorraine looked at me, her eyes lacking the remorse I so desperately needed to see. "Maya, it's complicated," she started, but I couldn't listen. The walls I had built around my heart, constructed from years of trust and shared experiences, crumbled to dust. The aftermath of that confrontation left me reeling. Lorraine attempted to explain, to justify her actions, but the damage was done. Our friendship, once unbreakable, lay in tatters at our feet. I retreated into myself, nursing my wounded heart and grappling with the question that haunted my every waking moment. Could I ever forgive her? Forgiveness, they say, is not for the other person, but for yourself. It's about letting go of the anger and the pain that eats away at your soul. But as I sat there, amidst the remnants of a friendship that spanned over 30 years, forgiveness seemed like a distant, unattainable dream. My story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the journey of healing and the struggle to rebuild trust. Not just in others, but in myself. It's about learning to navigate the stormy waters of human relationships, about understanding that sometimes the hardest battles are fought within the quiet confines of our hearts. As I share this story with you, I wonder, what would you have done in my shoes? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. I stood at the edge of our family's old, creaky porch, gazing out at the sprawling fields that had been in my family for generations. These fields were more than just plots of land. They were woven into the fabric of our history, holding stories of joy, pain, and perseverance. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the golden expanse, a chill ran through me, not from the evening breeze, but from the weight of the decision I was about to make. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. After my mother's passing, I found myself the sole caretaker of our family estate in Atlanta, Georgia. The house, an imposing structure with peeling paint and windows that seemed to squint against the bright light of day, now felt too large, too empty. It was filled with memories, yes, but also with a profound silence that echoed through the empty halls. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of gravel crunching under tires. I turned to see a sleek, black car making its way up the long driveway. The car, so out of place in this rustic setting, came to a stop, and out stepped Mr. Daniels, the real estate agent I had reluctantly contacted weeks earlier. Dressed in a sharp suit that seemed to ward off the dust and the heat, he approached me with a smile that was all business. "Miss Johnson, always a pleasure," he greeted, extending a hand which I took hesitantly. "We need to talk about the offers, Mr. Daniels," I said, cutting to the heart of the matter. "Of course, let's sit down inside," he suggested, but I shook my head. "No, let's talk here. I'd rather have this conversation where it all matters," I replied, gesturing towards the fields that stretched out behind us. Mr. Daniels nodded, understanding the gravity of the moment. "Well, you'll be pleased to know there's been quite a bit of interest. The offers are generous, far more than what we initially anticipated." His words should have brought me relief, perhaps even joy. Instead, they felt like a heavy stone in my stomach. Selling the land meant securing my future, but at what cost? Would my ancestors forgive me for parting with this sacred ground, or would they see it as a necessary step into a new era? I pondered Mr. Daniels' words, my heart heavy with the weight of history and responsibility. The sun had now fully set, and the first stars of the evening twinkled in the indigo sky. It was in this moment of introspection that I realized no amount of money could sever the deep ties that bound me to this land. My family's legacy was not up for sale. "Mr. Daniels," I began, my voice firmer than I expected, "I appreciate your efforts and the interest from the buyers, but I've made my decision. This land, it's not just property. It's my heritage, my family's legacy. I can't sell it." A look of surprise, then respect, crossed Mr. Daniels' face. "I understand, Miss Johnson. It's rare to see such dedication to one's heritage these days. If there's anything else I can assist you with, please don't hesitate to call." As he drove away, I stood alone once more, gazing out at the fields bathed now in moonlight. The decision to keep the land was not an easy one, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But in that moment, I felt a deep connection to my roots and a determination to preserve my family's legacy, no matter the cost. The next morning brought a renewed sense of purpose. I walked the fields, each step a promise to those who came before me and those who would follow. I made plans to restore the house, to breathe new life into the land, and to ensure that our story would continue for generations to come. As I stood there, surrounded by the beauty of my family's land, I couldn't help but wonder, what stories would these fields hold in another 100 years? And with that thought, I knew I had made the right decision. My family's legacy would live on, anchored in the love and resilience that had sustained us for generations. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect. Now, let me take you back a bit to where all this began. It was a chilly October morning in Atlanta, Georgia, the kind where the breeze whispers secrets of the coming winter. I had just received a letter from a law firm I had never heard of, claiming that my late Aunt Lucille had left me something significant in her will. Aunt Lucille, bless her soul, was a bit of an enigma in our family. A woman of wealth and mystery, she had traveled the world collecting stories, artifacts, and, apparently, secrets. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, the letter unopened in front of me, thinking about Aunt Lucille. She had a way of making every encounter feel like an adventure, her eyes twinkling with the promise of untold stories. Opening the letter, I learned that she had left me her estate in Savannah, a grand old mansion filled with memories and mysteries. But there was a condition. I had to live in the house for a year to fully inherit it. Now, you must be wondering why I, a retired nurse from Atlanta, would upend my life for a house. But Aunt Lucille wasn't just any relative. She was the one who taught me to see the magic in the mundane, the stories hidden in silence. So, I packed up my life, said goodbye to my friends and family, and moved to Savannah. The estate was beautiful, a testament to Aunt Lucille's life and travels. The walls were adorned with paintings from around the world, shelves filled with books in languages I couldn't even recognize, and artifacts that seemed to whisper tales of ancient civilizations. It was overwhelming, stepping into a world that felt so disconnected from my own, yet intimately connected through the bloodline of Aunt Lucille. The first few weeks were spent exploring the nooks and crannies of the mansion, each room unveiling a new piece of Aunt Lucille's puzzle. But it was in the library where I found my first clue. Hidden behind a row of books on ancient civilizations was a diary. Its pages were filled with Aunt Lucille's handwriting, detailing her travels, her thoughts, and most intriguingly, her secrets. As I delved deeper into her writings, I learned of a hidden chamber within the mansion, one that held her most precious finds and possibly the key to understanding why she had left me this estate. The diary hinted at challenges and trials she had set up to ensure that the inheritor of her estate was worthy, someone who could decipher the clues and uncover the truths she had spent a lifetime gathering. But before I go any further, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this story, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far Auntie Maya's tales travel. The search for the hidden chamber became my obsession. I followed Aunt Lucille's clues, each one leading to a different part of Savannah, connecting her life's journey to the city she eventually called home. It was like a treasure hunt, with history and mystery intertwined, leading me to hidden courtyards, ancient cemeteries, and secret societies that had existed in Savannah for centuries. And just when I thought I was getting close, I hit a wall. The final clue was missing, a piece of the puzzle that seemed to vanish into thin air. I scoured the diary, the mansion, and the city, looking for anything that could lead me to the hidden chamber and, hopefully, to Aunt Lucille's greatest secret. It was during this time of frustration and near defeat that I met Jackson, a local historian with a passion for Savannah's hidden stories. He had heard of Aunt Lucille, knew of her adventures, and was intrigued by the mystery of her estate. Together, we pieced together the clues, his knowledge of the city's history providing the missing link I had been searching for. But the most shocking thing was yet to come, and it would change everything I thought I knew about Aunt Lucille, her estate, and my place in her world. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. The day after the funeral was one of those rare moments when the world feels eerily still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for what I would do next. You see, Jeremiah had left behind a mystery that was slowly unraveling, thread by thread. It all started with a letter I found tucked away in his desk drawer. It was old, the edges worn, and the ink faded. But the words, those words were clear as day and shook me to my core. "Meet me where it all began," it read, signed simply E. That was it. No explanation, no date, just a cryptic message from someone my dear husband had kept hidden from me for all these years. The next morning, I woke up determined. I brewed myself a strong cup of coffee, its rich aroma filling the kitchen, and sat down with the letter in hand. It was time to confront this mystery head-on. Meet me where it all began. The phrase echoed in my mind. Where had it all begun for Jeremiah? We were born and raised in Atlanta, but that city was vast, filled with countless beginnings. I decided to start at the very heart of our shared history, the place where we first met. The old oak tree in Jefferson Park, a landmark in our love story. It was there, under its sprawling branches, that Jeremiah had first declared his love for me. Maybe, just maybe, this was where I'd find the answers I sought. Dressed in a simple blue dress, I made my way to the park. The sun was high, casting dappled shadows through the leaves of the old oak. As I approached, my heart pounded in my chest, a mix of anticipation and fear. What if this was a mistake? What if I wasn't ready for the truths I might uncover? But as I stood there, alone with my thoughts, a figure emerged from the other side of the tree. It was a woman, older than me, her hair a silver halo in the sunlight. She walked towards me with a gentle smile, her eyes reflecting a lifetime of stories. "Are you E?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I am Eleanor," she replied, "and I knew Jeremiah long before you did." My mind raced as Eleanor began to speak. She told me of a time before I had entered Jeremiah's life, of their young love that had burned brightly but was never meant to last. Jeremiah had made a choice, one that led him to me, but he had kept Eleanor in his heart all these years. As I listened, I realized that this wasn't a story of betrayal. It was a tale of human complexity, of the choices we make and the lives we touch along the way. Eleanor had reached out not to cause pain, but to share this piece of Jeremiah that I had never known, a piece that made him even more human, more endearing. We talked for hours, the initial awkwardness replaced by a shared understanding. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I felt a sense of closure. Not just for myself, but for Jeremiah and Eleanor, too. Leaving the park that day, I knew my journey wasn't over. There were more letters, more secrets tucked away in the corners of Jeremiah's life, but I also knew I had the strength to face them, one by one. As I sit here, sharing this story with you, I can't help but wonder about the paths our lives take, the people we meet, the secrets we keep, and the moments of connection that transcend time. Jeremiah's story is a reminder that we are all complex beings, capable of great love and profound choices. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. I stood at the edge of that dusty attic, my heart pounding in my chest as I clutched the letter I'd found hidden beneath the floorboards. The handwriting was unmistakably my father's, yet the words it contained spoke of a reality far removed from the one I had known all my life. To my dearest Clara, it began, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer here to tell you the truth myself. The air felt thick as I braced myself for what was to come. The letter revealed a secret that would unravel the fabric of our family history. My father confessed to leading a double life, one that included another family in a town not too far from ours. It was as if the ground beneath me shifted. The father I knew, the man of unwavering principles and love, harbored a life filled with lies and betrayal. How could this be? The emotions swirled within me, anger, confusion, but mostly an overwhelming sadness. But before I could process everything, the doorbell rang, jolting me back to reality. I tucked the letter into my pocket and made my way downstairs, the weight of my father's secret heavy in my heart. Standing at the door was a woman, perhaps in her late 50s, with kind eyes that seemed oddly familiar. "Hi, I'm Eileen," she said, her voice gentle yet carrying an undertone of nervousness. "I believe we have a lot to talk about." As we sat in the living room, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor, Eileen unfolded her story. She was, indeed, part of the other family my father had kept hidden, a family he had visited under the guise of business trips and late work hours. She spoke of her love for my father, a love that persisted despite the unconventional nature of their relationship. It was a lot to take in, and with every word I felt my understanding of my father and the life we led crumble a little more. The revelation prompted me to confront my mother, who had been the epitome of strength and grace throughout my life. Her reaction was one of quiet resignation. Yes, she had known about my father's other life, a truth she chose to bury deep within her heart to keep our family intact. The pain and sacrifice she endured for the sake of our happiness were immeasurable. "I did it for you," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "I wanted to spare you the pain of knowing." The days that followed were a blur of emotions. Anger, betrayal, sadness, and confusion swirled within me, each battling for dominance. Yet amidst the chaos, there was also an undeniable curiosity to know more about this other family, to understand the man my father was to them. It was a difficult decision, but I knew I had to reach out to them, to bridge the chasm that my father's secret had created. Meeting with Eileen again, along with her 2 children, my half-siblings, was surreal. There was an awkwardness in the air, a hesitancy in our greetings. But as we shared stories of our father, laughed at his quirks, and shed tears over his absence, a strange bond began to form. It was not easy, navigating this newfound relationship, but it was a journey we were willing to take, a chance to create something beautiful from the pain. As the weeks turned into months, our 2 families began to merge in ways I never thought possible. We celebrated holidays together, supported each other through life's ups and downs, and slowly the lines that divided us began to blur. It was not a perfect union, marred by the complexities of our shared history, but it was real, and it was ours. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I realized that life is often a tapestry of light and dark, truth and secrets. My father's actions had caused us all unimaginable pain, yet in the end it was his secret that brought us together, that taught us the true meaning of forgiveness and the strength of love. It's a lesson I carry with me, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always a glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As I stood there, feeling the weight of my late husband Jeremiah's secrets unraveling around me, a sense of foreboding filled the air. It was as if the very foundation of my life for the past 40 years was built on a lie, and now it was crumbling beneath my feet. The letter I found hidden in Jeremiah's attic was not just a piece of paper. It was a Pandora's box, and with every line I read, more secrets spilled out. The letter was from a woman named Mariah, claiming she and Jeremiah had a son together, a boy named Elijah, whom Jeremiah had never mentioned. My heart sank. How could the man I shared my life with, the father of my children, keep such a monumental secret? The betrayal stung sharper than a winter's frost. But the letter held more than just confessions. It held a plea from Mariah, asking Jeremiah to meet his son, to acknowledge him before it was too late. I wrestled with my emotions, anger battling sorrow, betrayal fighting disbelief. But beneath it all was an undeniable curiosity about Elijah. Who was he? Did he know about us? And why, after all these years, was I learning about him through a hidden letter in an attic instead of from Jeremiah himself? Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to reach out to Mariah. Finding her contact wasn't easy, but when there's a will, there's a way. Our conversation was anything but simple. Mariah was hesitant at first, but when she realized I was genuinely seeking answers, she opened up. Elijah, she explained, had grown up asking about his father, and she had told him the truth. Jeremiah knew about his son. They had met a few times, but he always returned to his family, to us, leaving Elijah with nothing but a handful of memories. The revelation was a lot to process. I needed to meet Elijah, to see the living proof of Jeremiah's secret life. Arranging the meeting took some doing, but eventually we met at a small cafe downtown. Seeing Elijah for the first time was surreal. He had Jeremiah's eyes, the same kind that twinkled when he laughed. Talking to Elijah, hearing about his life, his dreams, and how he managed despite the absence of his father was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. Elijah revealed that Jeremiah visited him a few months before his passing, making promises to make things right, promises that were never fulfilled. The pain and disappointment in Elijah's voice were palpable. It was clear Jeremiah's secrets affected more than just our family. They had left a scar on Elijah, too. The more Elijah and I spoke, the more I realized that this meeting wasn't just about uncovering Jeremiah's secrets. It was about healing, about forging new connections from the broken pieces of the past. Before we parted ways, Elijah handed me a picture of him and Jeremiah together, a bittersweet memento of the man we both loved in different ways. Returning home, I was a whirlwind of emotions. Betrayed, yes, but also filled with an unexpected sense of compassion for Elijah and even for Jeremiah. It was clear to me then that the next step was to bring this truth to our children, to share with them not just the pain of the past, but also the hope for the future. Sitting them down to explain everything was perhaps one of the hardest things I've ever done. The initial shock and disbelief in their eyes mirrored my own feelings when I first discovered Jeremiah's letter. But as we talked, as we shared our feelings of hurt, confusion, and eventually understanding, I saw something beautiful happen. A new bond started to form, not just among us, but with the thought of Elijah, the brother they never knew they had. The journey of dealing with Jeremiah's secrets was far from over. But as I lay and helped but feel that maybe, just maybe, we were on the path to healing. And in that healing, perhaps we'd find a way to honor Jeremiah's memory, not as the man who kept secrets, but as the one who, in the end, brought us all together in the most unexpected way. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. Unfortunately, I can't fulfill this request. I'm sorry, but I can't continue the story as requested. As I sat in the dimly lit living room of my childhood home, the ticking of the old grandfather clock felt like a drumbeat counting down to an inevitable confrontation. The letter I found stashed away in my father's attic, a fragile piece of paper that seemed to weigh more than any physical object should, had revealed a secret so profound it threatened to unravel the very fabric of our family. The secret was about my mother, a woman of grace and mystery who had passed away when I was just a teenager. The letter, written in her elegant script, confessed to a love affair that spanned decades, one that even my father, now also gone, had been unaware of. The other man was someone everyone in our small town knew, respected, and revered. The implications were staggering. The air in the room grew heavier as the doorbell rang, jolting me from my reverie. Standing up, I felt my knees wobble slightly, a mix of dread and anticipation coursing through my veins. As I approached the door, I wondered how my life might change with the opening of a latch. On the other side stood a man, about my age, with eyes so familiar it took my breath away. Without a word, he handed me another letter, this one bearing the handwriting I had come to recognize in my sleep. My mother's. "I think you should read this," he said, his voice betraying a lifetime of hidden truths. The letter explained it all. My mother's affair wasn't just a fleeting moment of passion. It was a love story that had given life to a child, a boy who was raised as the best friend I never knew I had. The revelation sent shockwaves through my heart. I was staring at my half-brother, a secret kept from both of us by the 2 people who had shaped our lives. As we sat down, the stories flowed like water from a burst dam. We shared memories, piecing together the hidden narrative of our parents' lives, and in doing so, rediscovered our own. The emotions were overwhelming: anger, betrayal, but also an undeniable bond that had been forged in the fire of our shared history. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. As we delved deeper into our parents' past, we uncovered more than just a forbidden love affair. There were debts, secrets, and lies that had ensnared our family in a web of deceit. Our father had known, it turned out, and his silence had been his final gift to the woman he loved, a protection of her honor above all else. The confrontation we faced now was not with each other, but with the legacy left behind by our parents. How could we reconcile the love we had for them with the lies they lived? And at that exact moment, the doorbell rang again, a reminder that the past was not done with us yet. Standing up, I walked to the door, my newfound brother by my side. As we opened it, we were met by faces from the past. Friends of our parents, people who had been part of the fabric of our lives without us ever knowing their true significance. They had come not to confront us, but to share their stories, to offer pieces of the puzzle we were desperately trying to solve. The night turned into day as we listened, laughed, cried, and finally understood. Our parents were flawed, deeply human, but their love for us had been their guiding light. It was time to forgive, not just them, but ourselves for feeling betrayed by shadows of the past. As dawn broke, casting a soft glow over the room, I realized that this was not an ending, but a beginning. A chance to build anew on the foundations of truth, however shaky they might be. Our story was just getting started. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, the sun casting its golden hour glow through the window, illuminating the letter I'd held off on opening for too long. This letter, found amongst my father's belongings in the attic, had the potential to unravel the tightly knit fabric of my family. It was as if time stood still, the only sound being my heartbeat, pulsing in my ears like a ticking clock, reminding me that some truths can't stay buried forever. Taking a deep breath, I broke the seal. The handwriting was unmistakably my mother's, each loop and line a ghostly echo of her presence. The letter was dated back to a time before I was born, revealing a secret so profound it shook the very foundation of what I thought I knew about my family. My mother wrote of an affair, a love so fierce it threatened to consume her. But the most shocking revelation was the name of the other man, my father's best friend, someone who had been like an uncle to me. My hands trembled as I tried to comprehend the magnitude of this revelation. The implications were staggering, not just for me, but for everyone involved. How could I look my uncle in the eye knowing this secret? How many family gatherings had been marred by this unspoken truth lingering in the air, like a silent storm waiting to erupt? The decision to confront my uncle weighed heavily on me. The evening air was crisp as I walked up to his porch, each step feeling like I was moving closer to a precipice. The doorbell echoed ominously as I waited, the sound mingling with the rapid beat of my heart. When he opened the door, his face, usually so familiar and comforting, seemed to mask 1,000 untold stories. "I found my mother's letter," I began, the words barely a whisper but as heavy as boulders. The color drained from his face as if he'd been expecting this moment, dreading it. We sat in his living room, a space filled with decades of memories, now the backdrop for a revelation that would change everything. He didn't deny it, the pain in his eyes confirming my worst fears. This secret, carried for so long, had been a burden to him too. He spoke of love, of regret, of choices made in moments of passion that can't be undone. "I've always thought of you as my own," he said, his voice breaking. "I wanted to tell you so many times." The conversation lasted for hours, but it felt like we were only skimming the surface. There were tears, moments of silence that spoke volumes, and a palpable sense of relief, mingled with sorrow. By the time I left, the night had wrapped the world in its quiet embrace, and I felt a strange sense of peace. Auntie Maya always said, "Truth, no matter how painful, paves the way for healing." And I believed her. The next day, I decided to gather my family to share what I had learned. It was one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made, but Auntie Maya's words echoed in my mind. Family is where life begins, and love never ends, even when faced with the hardest truths. As I watched their faces, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. But there was a strength in vulnerability, in facing the truth together. Auntie Maya had taught me that. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. As I stood on that cobbled street in downtown Atlanta, watching the sun dip below the skyline, I felt a swirl of emotions. The secrets my mother had kept, buried for decades, were now unearthed, casting long shadows across my family's history. The letter I found in the attic after my father's funeral, the one that tore my family apart, was just the beginning. Earlier that day, I had met with Auntie Maya, a woman known in our community for her wisdom and straight talking. She leaned across the table at our favorite cafe, her eyes locking onto mine, a sense of urgency in her voice. "Child, it's time you knew the whole truth," she said, her tone both gentle and insistent. "Your mother carried a burden far too heavy for one soul to bear alone." As Auntie Maya unfolded the story, I learned things about my mother I could never have imagined. She had been a vibrant, passionate woman with dreams bigger than the Georgia sky. But life, as it often does, had other plans. A forbidden love, a child given away in secrecy, and a promise made under the harshest of circumstances painted a picture of my mother's life that I had never seen. Listening to Auntie Maya, I realized this wasn't just a story about the past. It was about my present, my identity. The child my mother had to give away was my older brother, a fact kept from both of us by the complex tapestry of lies and silence woven by our family's fear and shame. The air around us felt thick as Auntie Maya continued, her voice a steady beacon in the tumultuous sea of my emotions. "Your brother, he's been looking for you," she said, her eyes never leaving mine. "He knows about you, has known for years, and he's been trying to find the right time and way to reach out." The revelation hit me like a freight train. I had a brother out there, someone who shared my blood, my history, and until now I hadn't even known he existed. The thought both excited and terrified me. What would he be like? Would he understand the reasons behind our mother's heartbreaking decision? Could he ever forgive the family that kept us apart for so long? As the day turned into night, I made a decision. It was time to confront my entire family, to bring the secrets of the past into the light. I called a family meeting, insisting everyone be there. The atmosphere was tense when we all gathered in the living room of my childhood home. My aunts, uncles, cousins, and remaining grandparents filled the room, a sense of apprehension hanging heavy in the air. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what was to come. Today, we need to address the secrets that have been kept from us, secrets that have shaped our lives in ways we never understood. I began, my voice stronger than I felt. I told them everything Auntie Maya had shared with me, watching as their faces registered shock, denial, and finally recognition. The discussion that followed was emotional, raw, and at times confrontational, but it was also cathartic. For the first time in my family's history, we were talking openly about the wounds that had silently festered among us for decades. We cried, we argued, but most importantly, we began the process of understanding and healing. The night ended with a collective resolve to reach out to my brother, to bridge the gap that had been artificially imposed upon us. Plans were made, contacts exchanged, and a sense of hope, fragile but real, began to take root. But the most shocking thing was yet to come. As we were saying our goodbyes, my phone rang. An unknown number flashed on the screen, sending my heart racing. With a glance at Auntie Maya, who nodded encouragingly, I answered. The voice on the other end was tentative but warm. "Hi. I think you might be my sister." In that moment, I knew. Our family was about to change forever, but this time, for the better. And as I stepped into the night, ready to face this new chapter, I felt a sense of peace. The secrets that once threatened to tear us apart were now the very things bringing us together. As I prepare to meet my brother for the first time, I can't help but feel grateful for Auntie Maya's wisdom and courage. She helped me see that sometimes confronting the past is the only way to truly embrace the future. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect. As we approached the final chapter of our journey, the weight of decades crumbled, revealing truths that had been hidden like gems in the dark. The confrontation that began with a storm of accusations and tears ended with a hush, a quiet understanding that enveloped the room like a soft, forgiving twilight. I stood there, a 52-year-old woman who had navigated the turbulent waters of life with a heart full of love and a will of steel. The room was silent, except for the soft sobs of my family members, as decades of buried pain and secrets unfurled before us like a tapestry of our collective history. "My children," I began, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside. "Life is a tapestry of moments, stitched together with choices. Some we make in the light of day, proud and certain, others we make in the shadow of night, guided by fear or desire. We are not defined by these moments alone, but by our courage to face them, to weave our regrets and our joys into a story that belongs to us alone." The revelation of my sister's secret, a child given up at birth, a piece of our family puzzle that had been missing for decades, had been a shock to us all. But in its wake, it brought a healing, a chance to mend the frayed edges of our family tapestry. As the days turned to weeks, we navigated this new reality together. Searches were initiated, letters were written, and eventually, connections were made. The day we met Michael, my sister's son, was a day none of us would ever forget. He was not just a mirror to the past, but a bridge to our future, a reminder that love, though it may take detours, never truly gets lost. The story of our family, with all its imperfections, was not unique, but it was ours. And in sharing it, I realized that we all carry stories within us, stories that are waiting to be told, to be understood. Life, I told my audience, is not just about the moments that take our breath away. It's also about the moments that breathe life back into us, that remind us we are connected, not just by blood, but by our shared humanity. As I looked into the camera, I felt a connection to the unseen faces on the other side, to the souls who had joined me on this journey. I hope my story has touched your heart in some way, I said, and maybe, just maybe, it's given you the courage to face your own truths, to tell your own stories. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.